For you can say the um, repair job, we need a very small rig, not the big rig, right? That is a portable rig. Or we need this kind of rig for this for making just a shallow hole, not uh, the well we or the hole we have to drill until the target. If we want to drill until target, we need a bigger capacity rig. The bigger capacity rig you can see here, this is a conventional land rig. Use to drill until the target where the hydrocarbon exists. If we are going to use some specialized technology to drill hydrocarbon well, so we have another specialized what you can say rig, which is called the coiled tubing rig. All these rigs we can have, right? So we can go maximum by the land rig by 30,000 feet deep, right? Okay, let's talk about some offshore rigs. For offshore rigs, we have the first rig, which is for the shallower depth between 2 to 7 meter, right? We call this rig as a swamp barge. Only 2 meter to 7 meter. Why we use this? If the hydrocarbon exists below this, what you can say, a location, right? So we put our swamp barge rig here, we tow it to the location, then we, what you can say, fill the hull of this rig with the water until it's get heavier and this rig is going to set at the bottom of this riverbed, right? The next is, and very important and most commonly used in oil and gas industry, is the jackup rig. That's a conventional rig normally, right? We can use this rig until 120 meter, which is almost, you can say, 600 maximum by 600 meter. Uh, okay, do we have any message in the chat box? Just a minute. No, we don't have any message in the chat box. Let's continue. So up to 600 feet, we can go with this jackup rig, which is a fixed platform type rig. The next rig is a floating rig. This is not the fixed rig, right? Fixed means it's going to fix at the bottom of the seabed. But the floating rig is not actually connected, or you can say the fixed at the bottom of the seabed. They're actually floating on the water, right? How they are going to float in the water? Because there is a pontoon here, right? We fill it with the water in it. That's going to be submerged in it. So we call this kind of rig as a semi-submersible rig. Half of or some part of this rig are under the sea, and some part of it is floating over. You can see the rig. See, excuse me. Okay, so here on top you can see here the rig facilities, or the rig mast or derrick, or some other facilities available here. So we can use this rig until 3,000 meter, right? That is normally we can see the deep water drilling. So 3,000 meter means the water depth. So whatever we are discussing, the depth is the water depth. Okay. So another is floating type rig is a drill ship. Drill ship is are not that much stable as the semi-submersible rigs, right? But they are, or you can say, they are capable to have a more capacity of the drilling operation, drilling equipments, facilities, everything here. But the semi-submersible cannot have the more capacity of the material or equipment on it, or the storage capacity on, in simply you can say. So we position normally on the location it, right? Then we fix it over there by using the dynamic positioning system, right? Then we start drilling and we can go until 350 meter, what you can say, if the water depth is this depth, 3500 meter, so we can use this drill ship to drill a hydrocarbon well from there. So here from the different, you can say, this schematics, you can see the different kind of rig. The jackup rig, deep water jackup. Here is a gravity-based structure, the complement tower, compliant tower, and the tension leg platform. Here is a classic spare and tours spare. Forget about all these, just only you can focus on the jackup, right, which is the most commonly used in oil and gas operations. So let's talk about the important, you can say the technical, or you can say the technical components are, what you can say, technically, let's discuss on the drilling components. So we have 5 different components. One is a rotary system, another is a hoisting system, the third one is a power, the next is a circulation system, and finally, last but not least, we have a well control and monitoring system, right? If any of them is missing except well control and monitoring system, the rest of the 4, if one of any of them is missing, we are not able to drill a hydrocarbon well, right? But well control and monitoring system is very much important, right? Among these, what you can say, the rig components. Why? Because to avoid any blowout and any undesired operation happen during drilling operation. For example, if we uncontrolled fluid we receive at the surface, there must be a blowout, right? So to avoid blowout, there must be a control, well control system over there. So let's briefly discuss on these systems. The first is the rotary system. Rotary system, as you can guess from its name, rotary means rotation, right? This system provides a rotation from surface to the bit. If the bit rotates, it is going to cut or chip the formation. Then we will progress until the target, and finally we are going to produce from there. So without rotation, we are not able to cut the formation. So this system provides rotation. So on the right side, you can see this is the manual, or you can see the mechanical system, right? So to provide a rotation to the bit. This is the Cali, this is master bushing. Here we have a Cali bushing, and this is a rotary table. So how this rotation goes? The mechanical rotation provides by this rotary table to the Cali bushing. Then Cali bushing, mechanical transfers the rotation to master bushing, and master bushing transfers the rotation to this hexagonal shape or square shape. Cali, this is a metal rod, right? Then if it's rotate below it, the drill pipe is connected, then it rotates the drill pipe, and throughout the drill pipe goes until bit, and then the bit is rotating finally. Our whole drill string component rotates, and the bit going to cut the formation, right? Then we proceed further and we hit the reservoir where the hydrocarbon exists. On the left side, you see the yellow one. This is called the most advanced technology to provide the rotation, which is called the top drive, right? The top drive has no mechanical part, only the motor. We have a rotary motor here, which provides a rotation to the bit. The next system is a hoisting system. Hoisting system, from this, the name you can see the hoist means the getting the things up and down, means taking it up and lowering it down. What? The drill string, right? The drill string has to move up and down. So we need one system which can perform this job. Is called the hoisting system, right? If we have a drill string, we have a casing, we have other equipment has to be raised up or lower down. So this system is required. In the hoisting system, we have, this is called a pulley system actually. The one pulley is here, another pulley is here, another is on the draw work, right? All combined together are going to perform this hoisting job to lower down and raise up the equipment. So these pulleys are actually between these pulleys there is a line, we call it the drill line or fast line. This is actually the metal line, a rope in between them. We what you can say, the spool this line over the drum, then this this is called a traveling block, it is going to move up. If we release the string or the metal string from this drum, this traveling block is going to be lower down. So means if you want to raise the drill string or any equipment up, I have to spool the string over this drum. If I want to release my equipment or get my equipment or drill string, casing, other equipment down, I have to release this drill string from this. Or not drill string, it's a drilling line from the drum, then it will be going down. Okay, so this is okay. Here the derrick is actually the leg of this tower. Have you seen any you can say the tower, the mobile tower, the big tower? It's a similar kind of a tower here. There is a big leg of the tower, right? Metal legs, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4 legs. Normally we have. Okay, so this is called a derrick. Okay, let's move to another system, which is a power system. For sure, to operate the system, we need a power, right? So without power, we can't do anything. The rotary system cannot be operated, the hoisting system cannot be operated, and the personnel who are living around there on the rig site to perform this drilling job operations, they have to actually have some power required for their living purposes. For example, to the recreational areas, to their living areas, to their kitchen areas, for their aircon, everything we need the power as well. So the power system is required to operate all these systems. Here you can see the electricity is generated here in the engines, then it's transmit to the control system. From here, the electricity transmit to the different system, for example, the drawworks, the mud pumps, and the rotary table. This is the power system. The next system is the circulation system. As you can see, the circulation system circulate something. Circulate means we are going to circulate the drilling fluid. But without the circulation system, we are not able to cut the new formation, and we cannot get the cuttings from the bottom back to the surface. We need some medium to get that cutting back to the surface. That medium is called the drilling mud. So drilling mud has to pump from mud tank to the bottom, and then it should be come back to the surface. Then we remove cuttings from there. Then we get this mud back to the tank. We cannot waste this mud anymore because there is a huge cost involved for this mud process or mud preparation. So from mud tank, we take the mud using a mud pump. Mud pump push this mud from here all the way from the pipeline to the drill pipe. Then it goes to the drill pipe or drill string all the way down to the bit. Then this mud will take the cuttings from the bottom and it will cool the bit, and it will provide the pressure at the bottom to control the formation pressure. Then by doing all these functions, this mud will take the cuttings back to the surface through this annulus. You know, the annulus is a space between the drill string and the borehole, right? So it will get it here, then the cuttings will receive at the surface on the shell shaker. It will shake, the mud will go to the tank, and the cuttings are going to be in the pit, right? So from there, the mud will go to some other process. Why? Because the mud has some small particles in it, some sand, some silts. So we have to remove it before get it ready to be pumped again into the mud, right? So the first is the descender. Descender is going to remove the sand. The silter is removed. The silt is very fine particles from there. And if there is some trapped gas inside the mud, so we have to remove that gas from mud as well. So we need the degasser to remove it from the mud stream. Finally, at this point, the mud is in good condition. So we, what you can say, get it inside the mud tank. Then finally, this pump is ready to pump again inside the valve bore. So this is called the circulation system, right? So without this, what you can say, circulation system, we are not able to drill oil and gas well. Let's talk here. Already I have discussed these components, right? The last but not least, there is a well control and monitoring system. Well control, you can see it's a big tree, right? Which is going to control the formation pressure. If any unexpected formation pressure is coming from the bottom, from the formation to the surface, we have to control it, right? So if we cannot control it, there would be a blowout. If the blowout, everything is gone. The rig is gone. The personnel who are working on the rig site are gone. Nobody will be, and nothing would be safer on that point. So to control the well from that pressure to be reached to the surface, or the fluid to be reached to the surface, we have to use this equipment. This is called well control system. We have some monitoring system. We have to monitor the progress of our drilling operations, right? So the progress in terms of what you can say, what is the ROP, how much fluid, and what is the RPM, and what is the mud weight we are pumping in, what's the mud weight is coming out, what's the BOP pressure, and what is the gas, what you can say, the barrel pumping in, and how much is the barrel is coming out, and what is the weight on bait, torque, everything. If we monitor all these parameters on any system, that system is called the well monitoring system. That is normally monitored by the different persons, drillers, drilling engineers, and the rig supervisors, all are monitoring the progress of the well same time. So here are some other components of the drill string. We have drill pipe, stabilizers, drill collar, and drill bit. So you just read it, they're all combined together are making a drill string. Okay, there's a drill bit. You can see the drill bit is the heart of the drilling process. If it's damaged, the drilling is gone. So there is no ROP. No ROP means more time. More time means more cost. More cost means everything is gone. And if you are being a drilling engineer, spending more money on your drilling operations, it's mean you are not a reliable or not a good drilling engineer. So nobody and no company will be hiring you and keep you inside. They will fire you. Okay, so means this is the heart. So we have to maintain or manage everything very well. So this bit has to manage very well as well, right? To get the good ROP. So this bit is actually responsible for the crushing of the rock, right? For the faster drilling, we have to faster crush the rock and get this cutting back to the surface. So some classification of the bits, we have the two kinds of big fixed cutter bit and the roller cone bit. In the previous diagram, this is the roller cone bit. These are the cones, they are going to rotate, roll, or means revolve, or you can say the rotate. But the fixed cutter bit, these cutters are not going to move, only the bit is going to rotate by the rotation of the drill string, right? So we have a few kinds of fixed cutter bit, PDC bit, and the diamond cutter bit. Roller cone bit also have a two kinds. One is a mill tooth bit, another is insert type roller cone bit. Okay, just you keep to this so far. Okay, if we combine these two, the fixed cutter and roller cone bit, that will be called as hybrid bit. The fixed cutter plus roller cone, we combine them together, that will be called as the hybrid bit. Okay, now very quickly we go to the important topic, which is the sequence of drilling operations. How do we reach the target? Are we going to reach the target in just one run, or we have to go to the target step by step? Yes, we have to do in a sequence or in stages. So what is the sequence of the operation is, first we have to drill a bigger well, bigger section. Then we run a what you can say, the casing inside, right? Then we have to, after running a casing, we have to cement this casing inside. Then we repeat this process from 3 until 5 again and again by the smaller size of the bait and boho until we reach the target. Okay, we know at the target we have hydrocarbon there. So here you can see, right, the first step, as I said, we have to place the rig. Then the drilling sequence or operation starts. In the drilling sequence, first we drill a well, as you can see in this what you can say, the diagram, right? After drilling this section, we get this drill string back to the surface. Then we run another pipe, which is called a casing, right? Steel pipe, we run it here, but still we have a gap, right? This gap is going to fill with the cement. We put the cement from here, from the surface, it go all the way from here, and will go to the annulus, and it will make a bond between this casing and the borehole. Then the next is, one section is done, right? The next is we have to drill a smaller hole. Here you can see smaller hole we need to drill, then run the casing inside the section and cement it. Then with a smaller bit we have to go down. You can see it's a V shape well we will have. So finally, when we cement all the casings and we reach the target or pay zone, I have to produce from there. To produce, we have to run another pipe, which is called a tubing, right? We run a tubing inside, then we perforate in the last casing. Now the communication between the reservoir and this wellbore would start, and we would start producing hydrocarbon from there to the tubing, and from tubing we will get to the surface, right? So that is the tubing. Okay, so we have a different kind of casings that we run inside. Number one is the conductor casing, second is surface casing, third is intermediate casing, the fourth, last but not least, but this is the most important casing, is called the protection casing. So conductor casing, we normally run it near the surface formation, which is formation is very weak and can easily be washed out, right? So to avoid the collapsing of the wellbore, we have to put one insert one casing inside our pipe inside, which is called the conductor pipe. After that, you remember in the subsurface we have a freshwater zones, freshwater which you can say the sources that need to be protected as well. That is a government regulation. To protect that freshwater sources, we need to run another steel pipe, right, which is called a surface casing. This is also used for the installation of the BOP. BOP is a blowout preventer. Remember we discussed here, this is called a blowout preventer. So to install on a casing, right, so normally it is installed on the surface casing. Okay, next casing is intermediate casing. Intermediate casing is an optional casing. For example, we have any abnormal situation which was not expected, right? But if it's expected, but that is more severe, to avoid that severity, or you can say to protect from that zone, we have to run one casing or the steel pipe, which is intermediate casing, we have to run in that zone, or abnormal pressure zones. The last is protection casing. We use this casing in the reservoirs or pay zone to avoid the damage to the reservoir, right? So these are the 4 different kinds of casing. So oil well cementing here is after running the casing pipe into the wellbore, The next operation to be completed done is oil well cement operation, cement job. In oil well cementing, we pump the cement from the surface. From here we pump, right? It will go all the way through the casing and the cement will go into the annulus. This is the annulus space between the borehole and the pipe. Then the cement will go all the way in the annulus from bottom until surface. It will cover this annulus space. Finally, this pipe is going to be bonded very well between in this particular borehole section, and it will make a strong bond, right? That is called a cement job. Okay, after cementing, everything is done and we have hit the reservoir. Right now we know the hydrocarbon is there, and now we want to produce the hydrocarbon from there. So without completion, running a completion into the wellbore, we are not able to produce hydrocarbon. What is completion? Completion, well completion is actually the process of making the wellbore ready for the production, right? What we need to do in this completion type, first we need to prepare the bottom of the wellbore, right, for the specific required specifications. Then we run the production tubing in it, right? Then we perforate it and stimulate the formation of the wells, and finally the completion is ready to produce. So there are two types of completions. One is the open hole completion, and another is a cased hole completion. Open hole completion means in this hydrocarbon zone, we don't run any casing, right? It's open. We drill with the bit, and we don't run any casing in that, and we directly run a tubing in it and start producing from that. That's open hole completion. The cased hole completion is we run the pay, we drill the pay zone first, then we run the casing, then we cement it, then we perforate this casing, and we get the communication between the formation and the borehole. Then we run the tubing in it, then produce from there. That is the cased hole completion. These are two kinds of completion we have. So you can see here, right? In open hole completion in the reservoir, we don't have any casing run and cemented, right? So we can, if we produce from such kind of formation, what kind of formation are there where we can recommend this open hole completion? They are normally a hard formation where we don't have any possibility of the sand production, right? So in that case, we can recommend the open hole completion. So oil, gas, water, all we will get from this single completion. So another is a slotted liner completion, right? We run a liner, but they are perforated already, right? We run it inside this, you can say the open hole, right? But not cemented. We don't cement it. So they will control the sand out here. Only the gas, oil or water will flow from here and will go to the surface. That is called the slotted liner completion. Okay. Here is again the open hole completion, but there is a screen. We use a gravel pack screen around it. So to control the sand production, if oil and gas has a sand, so we have to protect it here before going. We don't allow this sand to be enter into this tubing string, right? So here this is another, you can say the perforation, completion type. Another is a perforated liner completion. So we run a liner, then we perforate it, right? Then finally the communication starts between this reservoir and this completion. Then finally we produce from here. This is called the perforated liner completion. Okay, here you can see the perforating gun. The perforating guns, it's not the same gun normally is used to combat from any what you can say for the security purpose, right? But this gun is for the purpose to create a hole inside the metal, right? This is the bullets. We fix the XRD explosive material here inside the bullet. We put the bullet here, and then we run this gun inside the wellbore, and we place it in front of the location where we want to make a hole, then we trigger it. When we trigger the bullets, so bullets are going to fire and they are going to make a hole in this pipe, the steel pipe, and this hole will go until the deep in the formation. So the communication would start from the reservoir to here to the tubing. So we have some multiple zone completion. Multiple zone completion means from the different sections in the reservoirs, right? If we want to uh, commingle all this fluid into one tubing string or into one section, so we call is a commingled flow. But if I want to produce the separately from the different zones, right? So we have to complete the zones separately and produce different zones in the different tubings and from the different sections. So we don't want to commingle the production from the different zones in the well. So this is called the single, you can say, completion or the commingle. So here is the typical single string completions you can see. So we have a different kind of tools inside the completions. We have a triple SE, we have SE, SSV, flow coupling, we have landing nipple, packer, we have blast joint. So all are a part of our completion. So here is a multiple completion. It's a single completion. This is a multiple completion. One zone is going to produce from here, another zone is going to produce from here, another zone is going to produce from here. So that is the multiple completion string. So that's all from the well completion. Just a brief introduction of the well completion that we have discussed with the drilling operations, drilling sequence. So if you are able to ask a question, and if you want to ask a question, please ask me a question in the chat box. So if you don't have any question, right? So for the drilling part, we are done, right? So can we take a break, right? Let's take a 10 minutes break. Then we will start for our next agenda, which is the production, operations, and facilities, right? So take 10 minutes break. We are coming back at 10 past 5. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. So now we are starting our next topic, which is the production operations and facilities. Okay, so let's start with it. So I hope at the end of this lecture, you should be able to identify the major surface production facilities. You should be able to explain the functions of wellhead components, to describe the oil and gas separation processes and equipments, and finally, you should be able to describe produced water treatment and storage facilities. So let's talk about the basic common equipment that are used for many surface processing facilities, which are included the wellhead and manifold, some separators, oil treaters, water treaters, pumps, compressors, gas hydrator, condensate stabilization, acid gas treater, well testing equipment, and okay. So here you can see from this diagram, we actually collect the fluid from the well, which is called the produced fluid, right? Normally, usually we have to direct it by the help of some pipelines to the manifold, right? From the manifold, where we have to gather all the gather production from all the wells. From this manifold, which is called the production manifold, we have to direct this fluid to the common or the central processing and treatment location. This is the central, what you can say, the processing and treatment facilities. So the well from the production we have here, we produce hydrocarbon which goes from here to production manifold, finally then goes to separator, where we separate gas, oil and water. The gas goes from here to the compressors, and if we want to reutilize or reuse it for the injection purposes into the well, if we are not able to re-inject it, so what we normally do it, we either we use it for the domestic purposes, right? Or if its quantity is very small, then we can flare it as well in air. So, but oil and gas, oil and water, from the separator, it goes to the other processing facilities, which is the gas processing and water processing. Then the oil is going to store here in the oil storage, and the water, either the water can go to, you can say, in the disposal well, dispose back, or we can inject it into the well or reservoir, which is called the water injection, or the gas. If the gas injection, we inject gas as well and water as well. Okay, here is a common, you can say the combination of the different valves, which is called the manifold, right? Different valves and lines. And here is the common gas gathering station, or the line where we commingle or gather all the production from all the wells. From there, we send it for the processing. Okay, here is a typical offshore wet tree, right? Where we gather what you can say, the production from this well, right? And gather to the manifold, then finally it goes to the export line to the surface. Okay, here we have, let's talk about some other equipment. One of them is a wellhead that we use at the surface. So the wellhead is actually the part of the gathering system that begins from that point, which is wellhead. So it should be, it should have one choke with it that is going to control the well production, right? If the upstream pressure is too high, it is recommended to use a positive choke in series with an adjustable choke. In case the adjustable choke fails, the positive choke keep the production limited, right? Whatever we want. So an automatic shutdown valve can quickly interrupt the production in case of any event happen. For example, any blowout or any high pressure situation happen on the well site. So this automatic shutdown valve can be used to quickly interrupt and control or even completely stop the production from that well. So okay, so we can also block the production by using a block valve, which is actually required to perform the regular maintenance on the choke. If we need maintenance on the choke, we can use this valve and maintain the choke, and kindly we can go back to the production after maintenance. Okay, here you see Christmas tree. Here from this upper section is called the Christmas tree, which is going to use to control the production from the particular well, right? But below this is the foundation of this Christmas tree. That's normally all the tools we install and do during drilling operations, right? For example, the casing wellhead, casing head spool, tubing head spool, intermediate casing head, all these things we install during drilling process. But when we start producing from that particular well, we have to install the Christmas tree over it. Then we control the production of hydrocarbon by using this Christmas tree. Okay, let's talk about the process design. Here we have some what you can say the symbols that normally used for the different processes in the production operations or the surface facilities during the production operations. So the process flow schemes of process charts are commonly used to present the details of the process. It is usually important to understand the symbol convention used in those parts. If, for example, in processing activities, we want to use a valve somewhere, it is used a valve, so we can represent it by using this symbol. If there is a check valve means a one-way valve, right? So it's representing through this icon. So check one-way valve means the fluid can go in one direction but cannot come back from there, right? So check valve. So we have a relief valve. Relief valve means the valve is going to relieve some pressure trap inside, right? The symbol is here. So for the different process, there is a different symbols. So you can see here. So let's talk about the process design. So the surface facilities actually are the equipments. Normally they are designed based on some physical properties, the phase behavior of the fluid, and the flow of hydrocarbon fluids. Physical properties means the vapor pressure, the density, the molecular weight of the fluid, the viscosity, surface tension, the composition, and the gas liquid volume of the fluid. These are the physical properties. The behavior, phase behavior means how the phase behaves when some conditions vary. For example, the pressure, temperature condition vary during the production process. The fluid is going to behave differently. At the reservoir, maybe the gas is not in the gaseous form due to temperature pressure conditions, maybe in the liquid condition. But when are the vapor condition? When they reach to the surface, they are going to change their behavior or the phase from the liquid to gas, because at the surface the pressure temperature condition are different. So phase behavior is also another factor to decide to design the equipment for the facilities. And the fluid flow type. Fluid flow means you can say the type of flow or the properties of flow or fluid. Viscosity or you can say the flow regime of the hydrocarbon that we are producing at the surface from that facilities, right? The fluid properties means what is the density of the fluid, viscosity of the fluid, formation volume factor, compressibility, thermal expansion, and surface tension. These are the physical properties of the crude oil or fluid we are producing. So these properties actually need to predict based on the pressure, volume, temperature analysis, our behavior of the gas to estimate its properties, how it's going to behave, to predict how will it be behaving when the pressure, temperature, and volume, pressure, temperature changes, what will be the effect on the volume. So the techniques normally used to predict this PVT behavior of the fluid are the equation of state, corresponding states principle, and empirical correlations. Here you can see the fluid flow. Fluid flow means the type of the flow of the fluid through it. So whether this is a laminar flow, transition flow, or turbulent flow, we can decide or we can estimate it based on Reynolds number. Reynolds number, if the Reynolds number is less than 2000, right, we can declare the fluid flow as a laminar. If the flow, or you can say the Reynolds number is greater than 4000, we can declare the flow as a turbulent flow. How to get this Reynolds number? There is a Reynolds number equation, right? We can see here, right? So just we plug in the properties of the fluid in it, right? The density, right? The length of the pipe and the viscosity of the pipe, all we put it together here, right? We will get actually the Reynolds number. And the viscosity, obviously viscosity is another indication of, you can say, at which we are going to decide our surface facilities. Let's talk about the separation process or separation systems. Once we receive the hydrocarbon from reservoir to the surface, we gather in, you can say, the manifold, production manifold. After this, we have to send it for some processing, or some, one of them is the separation process and treatment. In separation process and treatment, the first thing we need to do is we have to take the contaminant from our stream out, right? Once the contaminant means the solid, some wastage, or you can say the sand, everything, we have to get it out first. Then only the oil, gas, and water has to be passed through the separation process. So from here, the first thing has to separate out is the gas, right? The gas has to out from the separator. Then the liquid stream, which is oil and water, has to move to the next stage where we separate oil and water from there, right? Oil will go to its way to the storage, and water will go to either to the disposal well, or we have to what you can say process this water again, and we can use it for the different purposes. Okay, so the separation, as we discussed earlier, is required the gas and the liquid to be processed and to be separate out in the processing method. So the separator is used for this purpose. The separators are normally classified either on the physical shape. Physical shape means it's a vertical or horizontal, or based on its function. Function means it's a two-phase separation, three-phase separation, or gas separation, liquid separation, water separation, whatever it is. All right, or we can classify it based on the different stages or the phases of separations, right? One of what you can say the separation technique is the two-phase separation, and another, the second is the three-phase separation. The two-phase separation, where we are going to separate the gas from the liquid, that is a two-phase separation. If we separate the gas, liquid, and water, liquid means oil, right, from it, so that will be called as the three-phase separation process. Okay, another device we use inside this separation is a scrubber. Scrubber handles actually the high. If we unusually have a high GOR, GOR is gas liquid ratio. Gas is more high in a liquid, right? So we can call it a gas liquid ratio. Gas in a liquid stream. So if the gas is more high, unusually high, so we need a scrubber instead of separators, right? Otherwise, the gas will pass to the next stage along with the liquid. So scrubber is another device which can easily handle the high gas ratio in the liquid stream. The next is the water knockout. If we have a free water in our production, right, and we want to separate this free water out of that stream, we have to use the water knockouts, right? Another is a filter. Filter is going to remove the solids if we have some solids in the liquid gas stream. Okay, here you can see the two-phase separation process where the gas is out the feed the stream, or you can say the liquid gas stream will come in the separator from excuse me. Okay, it will come from here, then it will go to this tube down, right? The gas will be settled here in this section, and the liquid will be settled here. Liquid means a liquid oil. Okay, so this is the two-phase separation. If we have water as well in our production stream, so we have to feed in all three here. First, the gas is going to be separate out from here, right? Then the liquid oil and water will go to this chamber, where the oil is going to separate out from here, and the water will go to separate out from this exit, and oil from this exit. So this is the three-phase separator. So here are some advantages and disadvantages of these separators. You just read it, right? That's not a big issue. So let's talk about the multi-stage separation, right? In multi-stage separation, you can see first the high stream. If there is a high pressure liquid gas stream coming to the separator, right? So what happens first, it go to this high stream, some gas is going to out from here, right? Then the pressure of the gas, for sure, this stream is going to reduce now, because from this very small pipe where the pressure was so high, it will go to the high pressure separator, where some pressure is going to reduce from 12, in this example, from 1200 psi to 500 psi, right? Then this stream, which has some gas, liquid, and water as well, it will go to intermediate pressure separator, where the pressure of the stream not that much high, right? Little bit lower than the previous stage. For example, it's a 500 psig, then it will go to this separator, and it will separate out some more gas from here, and the liquid will go to the low pressure separator, which is almost a 50 psi, right? Then the remaining gas will be out from here, and the rest means the water and oil is going to be the next stage. If there is no water, directly the oil will go to the storage stock tank. If there is a water, there will be another separation of water and gas, sorry, water and oil. Then it will go to their respective storage. Okay, so the gas separation. If the gas at this stage, you can see the gas is going out, it has to be processed again at this level. There must be some mist, some vapors in that. So in that case, the gas or condensate, there has to go to the glycol dehydration system, right, where the condensate will be absorbed from this gas, right, and it will be sent to the condensate flash tank, and the produced water will be sent to the skimmer. So from after this, the produced gas is actually the dried gas, right? Is going to be dry, but by contacting it with TEG. triethylene glycol, this which is a liquid which is going to dry the gas completely, will absorb the rest of what you can say the condensate from it. Then this remaining condensate will go to the flush tank, where it's going to be converted into coolescent, which allow nearly the total removal of the remaining produced water. Okay, then after this, the water is going to be treated. So before going to treat the water, we have to identify what is the purpose of the water. Either we have to dispose, we can dispose this water off, or we can re-inject this water into the well. If we want to dispose the water right into the well, so we need to treat it first, right? How to treat it? First, we need to make it acceptable for the environment and make it environmental friendly or acceptable. Then we dispose it into on the surface. Otherwise, we cannot do it. So if we are injecting the water into the well, so we need to again look at what is the source of the water. If the source of the water is from the river or the sea, right? So we need to clean this water first and make it, we have to make it the solid free to avoid the plugging of the formation. Okay, so here I want to skip just this, you can read it. Okay, if from this diagram you can clearly see if we are having the production stream from here. So here we are going to separate the water here, the oil here, and the gas to the evacuation stage. So must be until the certain situation. If the water we are taking from this separation out, the water must be the oil free. There should not be any oil, there should not be, and if we are going for a disposal, right, there should not be any oil in water. But if we are re-injecting it, right, it should be oil free, plus there should not be any solid as well. So if there is an oil, after the separation process we are getting oil out, so we have to degas it. So if there is a gas trapped inside the oil, we have to take the degasification of it. Then after the degasification, the oil has to be dehydrated, means the water should be taken out of oil. Then we can evacuate, means we can use it. So if the gas is out, first we need to recondition the gas, or you can say the process the gas, bring it to the DO point, and recondition it. So at DO point, all what you can say the oil will be settled down, the gas will be out of it. And then remove the contaminant from it, then finally compress it, and either we can pump it into the well or we can use it for other domestic usage. Okay, the next is the water that we are collecting from the processing facilities, right, may contain some solids, some droplet of oil, and some gases, dissolved gases. So must be treated as we discussed earlier, right? Otherwise, it will cost us a lot in terms of environmental damage. So production support facilities. In production support facilities, support means with the passage of time, uh, you know, the oil or gas production are going to be drop. If the oil or gas production are going to drop uh, due to the reduction in the hydrocarbon or the reservoir pressure, so in that case, we have to maintain our production requirements, right? So to maintain the production requirement, we have to bring the natural from the natural energy to the artificial energy. Natural energy is the reservoir pressure. The artificial energy is the energy that we provide to the hydrocarbon stream to get it to the surface, right? That is called, this is support facilities for the production, that is called the artificial lift method. Artificial lift is a secondary, or you can see the supplemented facility that is used on the well to maintain or to increase the tubing pressure during their economic life in order to obtain the maximum recovery of oil for maximum profit before this reservoir or this what you can say the hydrocarbon source is going to lower than the economic limit of the producing life of this reservoir. So, so we have to note one thing here. There are actually the different kind of a what you can say the drive mechanism from the reservoir. One of them is a water drive. Water drive means the reservoir is active at the water, the oil at the water drive. So all the oil and gas are deriving from reservoir to the well from based on the water drive, right? If we have a water drive, it is possible that we can continue producing at that natural water drive until the 100% of the salt water is coming, means 100% oil and gas we can produce from there, and we can and 100% water, salt water is coming in the water production. No oil, no gas is there. It's mean that is the exception in case of a water drive. The usual experience is that a well will require some means of artificial lift. There was a no water drive, but the oil production was reducing, continuously reducing, right? So, but to what you can say, to maintain that production, so we need some supplements, right? Supplement energy, that is called the artificial lift method. Here you can see the different lift facilities. It could be hydraulic lift, plunger lift, PCP, sucker rod pump, ECP, or some other way to maintain, to manage the oil and gas production operations, right? So here how to select the different kind of facilities, or the surface facilities or support facilities. It depends on the different criteria: operating depth, operating volume, operating temperature, and all these parameters are here. If the depth is up to 6,000 feet TVD, right, we can use this rod. We can use the progressive. If it's until 5,000, we can go by the gas lift, and similar, you can follow this chart to select the surface production facilities for it. Okay, let's talk about the crude and gas storage. What is the goal or objective of this crude or gas storage? The major objective is to get the clean product, right? Is to provide the clean storage for each of the product we get from the reservoir. Either this is gas, oil, or water. The gas cannot be stored, but the oil can be stored, right? But gas can be transported from through the pipelines from a location to another location. So this storage should be what you can say, to furnish the sufficient storage volume to minimize the production operation downtime. Okay, means we should have the sufficient storage volume, whether this is oil storage volume, right? It should have a sufficient storage volume in that to avoid the production operation, to avoid the halt in the production operation. What does this mean? Means we should not stop the production because of the storage issue. If, for example, I have a 1 liter storage, so only 1 liter I can store into that. After that, I cannot allow the oil to be spilled over it, right? So I have to stop my production until the production, what you can say, the storage is empty. Then I turn my production on, then store again, then off, then on. This is not good, because I have with this strategy, I would have a loss of economy. I have a loss of money, right? So in that case, I have to avoid this situation. So one is this: it should be a sufficient storage volume, right? So we have, and we should avoid what you can say, the volumetric loss of the fluid. Volumetric loss means, for example, the oil. If the oil is volatile and while the storage are not properly maintained, So some oil is going to be loss from there, and the volume is going to be shrink, and then ultimately the profit is going to be shrink as well, right? And to avoid devolution. So there are many factors which are governing the selection of the storage, right? The factors are the economic consideration, the safety consideration, and the pollution consideration. For the economic consideration, there are a few factors such as the cost of the storage and the facilities associated to it, and operating and maintenance cost, capability of future expansion, cost of land, and oil conservation and vapor prevention. These are the factors are related to economic considerations. Some safety considerations. Safety consideration means proximity to property line, some spacing requirement, prevention of hydrocarbon release to the atmosphere, vapor pressure, and other physical properties. Some dike, wall requirement, pressure, vacuum relief walls, all these things are the safety requirements. As you can see, and it depends on actually what type of storage we are going to recommend, whether this is a fixed roof or the floating roof. Fixed roof means the capacity cannot be changed. That is a maximum capacity. But the floating roof means can move up and down based on the requirement, right? These are some type of the tanks we use for the storage. Okay, another is the non-conventional storage. Non-conventional storage means it's a movable storage tank. It's not the fixed, right? We produce from different, what you can say, wells. We store or we gather actually the hydrocarbon from different wells to this common location, right? From there we send it this stream for the processing, where it's processed. Finally the stream is ready to transfer. Then we use some shuttle tanker to move from this common facility or processing facility to the other location. This common processing surface operations, we need this floating type of rig, which is called type of storage operations, right? Which is called FPSO, right? Next is the crude oil and gas evacuation. After this, the crude oil or gas has to sell it or evacuate to for the different usage, right? To use it. So to evacuate it, we need different equipments, right? We need a pump, we need a compressors, we need some generators, and we need some prime movers. For example, the reciprocating engines, gas turbine, electric motors, and steam engines to transmit this fluid from one location to another location. Okay, so the pumps is a device. Actually, we use the mechanical energy. We give a mechanical energy to the fluid to transfer from one point to another point, or one location to another location. Compressors is a device is actually used to compress the natural gas, which is coming from the separators, right? So why we are compressing it? To actually increase the pressure of the gas, right? To move from one location to another location. If the gas pressure is too low, so that is very difficult from move it from one location to another location, right? If the location is upside, then it is very easier because the gas can easily move upside. But if it's going to move either downward or horizontally sideways, so we need a compressor to increase the pressure of the gas to move. So here are some pumps. We have some positive displacement pump, some kinetic pump, right? You can see it here. So there we have some compressors as well. Okay, so here is a diagram of the compressor, which is going to compress the gas and increase the pressure of it. Here is a what you can say reciprocating, or you can say the rotating compressor. Let's talk about the metering of the crude oil that we are getting, receiving from, or you can say the processing, after the processing, before selling it. The purpose is you can clearly say the purpose of the metering is the contractual requirement, the production planning, the product quality control, and the process control and safety as well. The accuracy is very important of the metering, because if during the well test we can give the margin until 5%, which is acceptable. But if we are selling, right, or we are transferring, or you can say for a different usage, right, the deviation should not be more than 0.5%. If the maximum is 0.5% is allowable. So it's actually the accuracy is depending on the two factors. One is the repeatability and accurate determination of the correction factor, right? These two factors are going to, now what you can say, determine the accuracy of the, what you can say, the volume of the liquid or gas. Okay, let's talk about the pipeline pigging. Pigging is just a repair job, right? That is used to clean the efficiency of the pipeline and increase the efficiency of the pipeline. With the passage of time, there is some, you can say, the contaminants are going to be settled in the pipeline, right? Which is going to reduce the volume flowing through that pipeline. To increase the efficiency of the pipeline and to clean it, we need to run a pig through it. The pig is, you can see the tool we run through the pipeline, which remove all the hurdles, all you can say the debris from the pipeline and clean it. Okay, and also to locate the obstruction and inspection for the line, and to separate the products, to corrosion control and air purging and water removal and meter probing. Here is the pigging. You can see this is different shape of pigs. This is if there is a corrosion, we run this pig, these two pigs. If there is a debris, we want to clean it, we run this, right? So to these two. Okay, so let's talk about the different production team which work together to make this production of oil and gas. How you can see the production of this oil and gas from reservoir until surface, from surface until consumer, right? All these things together are important to deliver, and we can call this a global supply chain for oil and gas industry. The number one is the business information system. Business information system, one of the major business what you can say the activity units for oil and gas industry, which is responsible for the global supply chain, right? Which simplifies and streamlines the data management and access, interlocking the experiences of the local and contracting workers, saturating investments and operational decisions for the benefits of exploration and production wells. And this team actually adopt a supply chain wide technology to allow every user of the system to see a single file system. This system is also provides the instant service wherever the location of the users or desktop device. And this also allows administrators to manage the enterprise from anywhere. The next important pillar are the team of the production team is the chemical engineers. Chemical engineers work in the facility section of the upstream sector as the process safety support or facility engineer, right? They are very important guys because they know about the tools which are going to use for the production facilities, such as the tanks, pumps, pipelines, separators. They manage all these tools. They also manage the design process to recover the residual oil. right, through some chemical flooding, some steam flooding, some other design process. They are also involved to prepare the engineering project documentation, including the PFDs, personal flotation devices, piping and instrumentation diagrams, equipment data sheets, and general equipment and sizing calculations. They also involve in the downstream operations, for example, the pipeline at the surface, right? Some chokes, some valves, all they are involved in these operations as well. The next is the civil engineers. Civil engineers are also very important because they need to lay the foundations for the facility, surface facilities, right? To safely transmit its load on the ground during the operation and maintenance. For example, they're involved in the roads manufacturing, roads constructions, internal parts of the roads, walkways, paving to access the different sections and equipment of the field, control buildings, offices and residential buildings, security fencing, boundary walls, all these civil works are required. Some people, specialized people like a civil engineers, they are very important for all these, what you can say, uh, activities. They are also involved in design, plan, and execution of some civil work required for particular project or facilities. The next is the electrical engineers. They are also very important because the electricity, they need the generation of the power for the mud pumps, the mud handling equipment, and provides 24 illumination, means the lights for the cabins and the crew members. They coordinate, in some cases, they create the schematics for the electrical and electronic system for the refinery as well. Okay, they also involve in the design plan uh, as a planning engineer, designing engineer. That's for the high voltage work, right? They design all these things for the compressor, generators, some high, what you can say, performance computers, furnaces, and assorted equipments. They write, amend, and approve the electrical management of change documents. Okay. So the next is ICT, Information and Communication Technology team, which do some research, they do some plan and some design, develop, then they modify, evaluate, and integrate the computer information and communication system networks for the better management of the production stream throughout. So they are also involved in the development of the complex uh, production and processing system, right? Surface wellhead system, high pressure fluid control equipment, and marine loading system. So they are actually the design engineers, field service engineers, hardware design engineers, network engineers, system engineers, and telecommunication hardware engineers. Another team in the production team is the mechanical engineers. They are responsible for many different aspects of the oil production and refinement processes. They design and install equipment. They design and oversee the large project, and they actually do the research and develop the new technology in the field for the enhancement of the production from the reservoir. Last but not least, the most important for the oil and gas industry is the production engineers. Production engineers normally a production engineering team normally comprises on the production engineers, right? They are responsible to design and select the appropriate subsurface and surface production equipment. They are responsible to coordinate the installation and maintenance and operation of the mining and oil field equipment. They are responsible to manage the boundary between the well and the reservoir using the perforation, sand control, artificial lift, and downhole equipment. They are responsible to oversee the well to ensure it is flowing, making oil or gas, and continues to be economically viable. They also recommend the modification to maximize the efficiency of oil and gas recovery. Production engineers work both in an office and out in the field at well site. So here they are actually the team for the production to make sure that the well from uh, uh, upstream and downstream performing up to its maximum capacity with the maximum recovery from it. So that's the production team, and that's all from the production operation and facilities part. So thank you very much for being a part of it. If you are able to ask a question, again, the floor is open for you. Thank you very much for this, you can say, session, for joining the session. If you have a question, you can ask. So if actually, if you are not able to ask a question, as we tried earlier to unmute the chat box, but we were not able to do that. So if you are not able to ask a question by any means, I'm sorry for that, because I don't know how who is going to solve this issue, but really I am apologize for that. So thank you very much for joining the session. So see you next time. Bye bye.